Okay, thanks for joining me for this live stream chat. Today it's a sort of a new departure for me. What I propose, it's going to be an informal sort of a situation, an informal chat about issues that arise today and generally, obviously, in society generally. So I hope you can hear me, I hope you can see me, and I hope I am coming through there. You might just indicate, if you don't mind. That I am actually coming through. I don't see any activity there, but I don't see the thing. I don't see the thing coming up here. Anyway, the purpose of this live stream is simply to have a chat, sort of an informal chat, and a look at the things that are going on today in our society. I can see you, E20. Hopefully you can hear me as well. You might just confirm that you can, if you don't mind. Good stuff. Brian Bullman Investing, thanks for commenting and thanks for coming along. As I say, today I'm just going to have a look at the Twitter feed, my Twitter feed, and see exactly what is the story. Yes, can hear you, Tony Lynch. Hello, Tony. Thanks for coming along. Thanks, George, for coming along. Does this apply in Ireland? I'm not sure what you're referring to there, George, what you are referring to. But anyway, obviously the Twitter feed there is full of the interaction and the protests yesterday to do with anti-masks and anti-vaccines and all that sort of stuff. And obviously it's something that has elicited a huge degree of interest from people who are working hard to do their best to prevent COVID-19 transmitting in society, healthcare workers and others who are suffering badly, people with small businesses and so forth. So the photographs that you can see there on the Twitter feed are pretty annoying and pretty infuriating, quite frankly, for many people. So George Breben is talking about the right to remain silent in interaction with Garda. Okay, so as I say, the Twitter feed is full of this crack yesterday with the anti-mask vaccine or anti-vaccine COVID-19 or a far-right outfit, and obviously it's a huge factor and a huge concern for many people that this sort of far-right stuff is beginning to take hold in Ireland, unfortunately. It remains to be seen how it's going to be dealt with. It remains to be seen how strong they are, and so on and so forth. Mark Malone, he's a man there now who is writing about or tweeting about, as you can see, the COVID-19 conspiracy people and genuine anxieties in far right. Obviously there is people with genuine anxieties about various things, but what went on yesterday in Dublin is completely unacceptable in my view. I don't know what your view is. There's videos of the BLM protesters throwing bricks and dozens of fireworks at the Gardaí from a few weeks back. So I'm not really sure what point you're trying to make there. During the protest for justice for that African fellow who was shot by the Garda. I don't know what Black Lives Matter has got to do with this, quite frankly. Anyway, there's Johnstown Bridge GAA, that's a local football club. I'd follow them, played football against them many times. It's time to extend the 5 kilometres. Enough is enough. Ollie Crow there is tweeting that it's time to extend the 5 kilometres. Obviously, that is something that unacceptable to attack Gardaí under any circumstances. Well, I'd certainly agree with you there. There's no doubt about that. Arthur McGurk, Dan Arthur here. I have a friend that is an executor on the will, homemade will. He's not blood relative. Arthur, the best thing for you to do now is get your friend maybe to contact me and see what is the story. Sam David, yes, absolutely disgusting behaviour on our streets yesterday. Do you think the nonsense has gone too far? Absolutely, Sam. I think it's absolutely appalling, and I think it's a kick in the teeth for ordinary decent people and people working their butts off in the health service, and people who are seeing their business going down the tubes, quite frankly, because they're following the rules, they're following the regulations and so on. So I really think it has gone too far, and I hope that there is plenty of criminal convictions arising from what has occurred. Okay, what else have we got there? Cathal Crowe TD is tweeting there that there's something a little bit incongruent here tonight. Gemma, keep up the great work. And obviously that's a reference to Gemma O'Doherty and the fact that the people who would have been protesting yesterday would probably be of the similar viewpoint as her. Simon Harris then TD. Simon Harris is obviously a government TD, he's a government minister, former Minister for Health and a Fine Gaeler, and as a consequence is going to attract a fair degree of criticism from all sorts of people. But the reality is that what he's saying there, we cannot ignore our reality. Some in public life, in pandering to populism, have been enablers for the far right. Those who invite them to summer schools, who praise them online, who sign their nomination papers for elections, who use the word but when criticising an action. Essentially what Simon Harris is saying there, and I agree with him, is that if you're not part of the solution, you are part of the problem. And people who do turn a blind eye or are sneaking regarders for the sort of far-right populist horseshit that you're going to come across, and which has taken hold, as it were, in Ireland in the last few years, is obviously something that's going to be a problem. There's a lovely little video there on Twitter of a robin in full voice, and today obviously was a beautiful day. Today I cut the grass for the first time in 2021, and there's a real sense of spring about it. There's a real sense of maybe turning the corner, not just in relation to the weather, but in relation to perhaps the COVID-19. Now, we're turning the corner fairly slowly because of the slow delivery of the vaccine situation, but that is something that we are hoping will improve, and that our vaccinations and so on will speed up. Senator John McGahon there's an interesting tweet there. On a day when 3 Gardaí are injured, hundreds breach public health guidelines, a protester launches a firework into a Garda's face, and a Sinn Féin councillor commends those who breach COVID restrictions. There's a Sinn Féin TD there, tries to lash out at the government and the mainstream media. And that's Rheda Cronin TD, and I had a look at that tweet of Rheda Cronin's, and apparently she's a Kildare woman, a Kildare person. At least she tweeted from Kildare. I don't know her from a hole in the ground, but I mean, I hope she's not trying to justify what went on yesterday, because if she is, then Sinn Féin need to get their troops into line in terms of they can't have it both ways. You know, they can't on the one hand criticise the government for not being strong enough on COVID-19 restrictions, not being strong enough on preventing various travellers into the country and insisting on quarantining and so on and so forth, and yet they have councillors, as I saw the other day on Twitter, and TDs coming out trying to ride two horses essentially, or appear to ride two horses. A roaring trade in takeaway coffees today in Cork City. I saw one place with a queue nearly 20 deep. Good weather, nice family atmosphere, lots of cycling too. That's good news. Hopefully they were socially distancing and so on, and hopefully they were abiding by the regulations. And if they are, and if they were, well then hopefully we have a situation where we might begin to improve things in this country, and we might begin to get back to something approaching normality. I'd really love it, but at the same time, I do recognise that we need to be careful, and we need to try to prevent the transmission of COVID-19, and we need to try to get the numbers down who are contracting it, and obviously the numbers who are losing loved ones as a consequence. Harris clarifies far left remark over Dublin protest. So Commissioner Harris was criticised there. Obviously, he in the first instance commented that it appeared to be far right and far left elements and so on that were responsible for the protest yesterday in Dublin that went badly wrong and badly pear-shaped, and then he's clarified that today, that he accepts it, what seems to be far right people, vermin. Peter Brennan makes the point there, as you can see on Twitter, far right, far left labels are pretty meaningless to people who like to go to protests or riots for the buzz. And he's right there, he's absolutely right, and there is a small cohort of people who will oppose everything, who are against everything, and who have the view that Bob Dylan had back in 1963 or 64 when he was asked, "What are you against today, Bob? What are you protesting against today, Bob?" Bob Dylan in an interview said, "What have you got?" So there is people like that who just like a good fight, who are against everything and who are anti-establishment and anti-everything. So far right and far left labels are a bit incongruous in those circumstances. Robbie Henshaw, 50 caps, a great Coulson man. Coulson, oh good man, Desi Dolan. Robbie Henshaw, 50 caps, a great Coulson man, and Robbie Henshaw obviously is from Athlone. Coulson is outside Athlone, I think. Desi Dolan obviously was an excellent footballer for County Westmeath. George Conway then. George Conway is an interesting character who I follow on Twitter. He's the husband of the one that served Donald Trump, Roseanne Conway or whatever her name was. Can't remember exactly. But I'd say the conversations in that household were fairly interesting because he has been an absolutely inveterate opponent of Trump and Trump's administration all through. So George Conway has done the United States a huge degree of service. What else have we there? Anthony Daly. Yeah, man, Dr. Anthony Fauci. Dr. Anthony Fauci didn't get much of a hearing from Trump, and Trump then got his own particular answer. The currency then, as you can see there's a tweet from Ian Kehoe. He retweeted this. The pubs that challenged FBB's stance on COVID-related business interruption cover were vindicated by the High Court. Now there's a tricky business of assessing losses, particularly around two big sticking points: partial pub closures and legal costs. Yeah, that will be interesting. Obviously, that a good win, great win. I wrote a blog post about that there last week or the week before. Sean's Bar in Athlone was one of the bars involved. I think Synods in Dublin was involved as well in the case. It was a good win, and obviously it's going to open up a can of worms, not just for FBD, but for many other insurers as well. So that will be interesting to see how that pans out. One of the arguments that they were making in that particular case, though, was losses, future losses, not just losses to date. And the High Court was fairly sticky and fairly assured that it would be very unlikely that they're going to get future losses unless they can actually show causation. In other words, that when pubs open in a month's time or 2 months' time or 3 months' time or whenever they're open again, that it would be difficult to show the losses arising at that stage are as a consequence of the COVID-19. Obviously, it's very difficult in any business to quantify exactly what the losses are in any event. But it was an excellent win for the publicans in question. And Sean's Bar, actually, in Athlone, there is one of the oldest pubs in Ireland, I think, if not the oldest. Although I'd say there's more than one pub in Ireland that is claiming to be the oldest. Now, Connor there is tweeting, Ireland is 6th lowest of 28 in new cases per million of population. This is a phenomenal achievement, a 90% improvement in 7 weeks when we were 28 out of 28. And that is a genuine something to celebrate. That is genuinely something to celebrate. We were 28 out of 28 in terms of the transmission of new cases of the disease, and now we are 6th lowest out of 28. So that's a huge improvement, fantastic improvement, and ordinary decent people who are doing the right thing, who are wearing face masks, who are engaging in social distancing, and who are taking steps and being disciplined and making sacrifices and working hard at doing the right thing. Those people deserve great credit for the likes of that huge improvement, which is fantastic to see. Ghosts are told the house. Don't know what that's about. George Conway retweeted it. It's very interesting sometimes. Twitter can be a bit of a sewer. It can be an absolute cesspit. It can be similar to a big sewerage pipe, quite frankly. But sometimes there is little gems. It's like finding diamonds in a pigsty, quite frankly. It's like finding diamonds in a pigsty. But sometimes you'll come across legal letters or official letters that are tweeted out, and they make fantastic reading because they give you an insight that the ordinary person ordinarily would never come across. And I've seen some very interesting legal letters, for example, where somebody might be threatening somebody with defamation claim, or your man Rudy Giuliani, of course, was being threatened with various legal letters. But it's fantastic from my perspective anyway, and indeed I suppose from the perspective of anybody, to actually have a look at the letters, and they make entertaining reading. And as I say, without Twitter, even though, as I say, it is a bit of a cesspool at the best of times, you'd never see the likes of that stuff. And you see letters, obviously official letters from British government and so on and so forth, and the Prime Minister Boris Johnson and so on. So that's interesting, and one of the reasons why I from time to time dip into Twitter. Now, Cathal McQuilla is a former RTE man. I think he's retired, but I'm not 100%. He says that the Garda looked surprised after he waved him through a pandemic checkpoint on the Finglet Road when Cathal stopped to thank him and all the Gardaí for doing a tough job on our behalf. The Garda looked surprised. Who could blame him? A day after being the brunt of the head cases. Liz Midlone is saying she's finally reached the age where I can see the joy and benefit of gardening. Anyway, here's one here now that's going to get people agitated and get them excited. Conor Gallagher, I think he's a crime correspondent for the Irish Times, but he says that Leo Varadkar is not wrong when he compares bonkers anti-lockdown protester theories to QAnon adherents in the US. He's not wrong. The organisers of yesterday's protest, rise up, Aaron, rise up, Aaron. Jesus Christ, that's all I can say. Maeve Cody is saying, let's bury our heads in the sand and try to convince ourselves that there isn't a far-right problem in this country. We need political leadership here, not the dismissal of a growing problem. He seems to be, or she seems to be criticising the government, although I don't know why. Hard to believe it's a year since Bill Gates fucked a pangolin so that he could create a vaccine that would allow him to track how often Darren in Coolock hugs himself off. Anyway, I don't think I will bother commenting on that. Now let me see, have a look at some of these comments from people who have joined me here today. Susan C, I'd love normality, but I'll go do what I'm told. I agree, far right, far left. This is to do with being obsessed with conspiracies. Absolutely. Terry doesn't do Bitcoin because he doesn't know it. He invests in shares and companies he understands. He talks about it a lot. Well, that's true. Thoughts on Bitcoin? and they've been juking the stats. Jesus, there is so many conspiracy theories out there. Like, some of these people, I have a particular insight to them because I get an awful lot of comments on my YouTube channel, and most of them, quite frankly, now go into the bin, and most times I just ban the people off the channel, and have no hesitation in doing that at all. These people, some of them, think that the earth is actually flat. Professor Yvonne Daly, my parents are missing their grandchildren, but as my father said, it's not just about us, it's about protecting everyone else too. This is the real spirit of the Irish people's response to this pandemic. That's true. There's some photographs there. You aspire to build. My Twitter course just passed 200,000 in sales from 5,000 plus customers. Thank you. That Daniel Vassallo, I actually bought that course. It's a Twitter course. He's done 200,000 in sales from 5,000 plus customers. That's some achievement. What else have we got here? The far right rises its growth as a political force in Ireland. The Irish Times there are writing about the far right, and the movement is exploiting the COVID-19 crisis to extend its influence online and on the street. And that's an interesting proposition or hypothesis, that the far right are actually exploiting the COVID-19 situation with fake news, with nonsense arguments, with nonsense data, with make-up facts, to basically exploit vulnerable, easily led people. The way out of college debt isn't a government bailout, it's NFTs. That's an English or American guy there, so I'm not too fussy about him. There's the head on Trump. The useful idiot. Why we're not done with Trump yet? Jesus, that's a frightening prospect, that we're not done with Trump yet. Fergal Bowers there. There's an interesting tweet. The BBC has reported that doctors joins Zoom court hearing while operating on a patient. Holy crap. There's Richard Grogan, his tweet, no jab, no job. There's talk there in the United Kingdom about no jab, no job. In other words, if you don't get the vaccine, if you don't leave yourself open to the vaccine, then you may well lose your job. From a legal perspective, that has great difficulties, etc. But I can see some pressure coming on to ensure that a lot of people are vaccinated. Fergal Bowers there is letting people know the 15 vaccination categories by priority, and if we have a look at that, the first one is 15 children out of 7. My mother got the vaccination there last week or the week before. So yeah, adults aged 65 years who are residents of long-term care facilities are number 1, then frontline healthcare workers, people aged 70 and older. All these people are the categories of priority, I suppose, in terms of the vaccination. Under the initial plan, all those 85 plus were supposed to be fully vaccinated by late March, and I don't believe. I don't understand how people attribute the ongoing protest to either the far right or far left. It's just another buzzword. It's just a rebellion against the lockdown. Dragonborn 2K, I'd agree with you there. It's just people as far as I can see. Not saying I agree with the protesting at all. Change topic Q for Terry. Where do you see taxes going in the future? Where do I see them going? That's a difficult question to answer. I mean, obviously we're going to pay tax, and we have to pay tax for the good of society and to look after people who are less well off than us and people who look who have fallen bad times and unfortunate times and so on and so forth. So that's the whole idea. I know a lot of people contact me on YouTube and so on, and they're whinging about tax, but Jesus Christ, can you not accept and see, can these people not see that people who are on their uppers, people who are less fortunate than us, people who have run into very difficult, unfortunate, catastrophic circumstances are entitled to a helping hand, a hand up by other people in society who can afford to pay a few bob in tax. UK to launch first green savings bond to boost climate credentials, according to the FT. Cliff Taylor in the Irish Times is talking about tax reform. Yellen signals it's game on for global corporate tax reform. The Irish state may well be under pressure there in relation to the alleged or purported generous taxation of foreign companies, especially the likes of tech companies and especially the likes of Apple and Facebook. But the reality is always more interesting and more difficult than the rumours and the shibboleths and the myths, because the reality is that some of those big companies pay an absolute massive amount of money in tax, but that doesn't make news. What makes news is that they're paying a very low percentage or whatever. Tom Maguire, 45 years ago to the minute, Maynooth University GA Sigerson champions 1976. Maynooth won the Sigerson in 1976. That's interesting. Financial Times says the IMF no longer functions as the world's safety net. Tarnished, the anti-lockdown march in Dublin was a riot, not a protest. And Kildare COVID-19 incident rate is 36 points above the national. The national rate. The legal challenge to the Northern Ireland Protocol is a sideshow, a vehicle to allow unionists to indulge in the twin myths of betrayal and heroic defiance. Unionism is in trouble, and this is not the way out. That fella there now, that David Schneider, is worth following there on Twitter. If you're on Twitter, maybe you're not. Richard Grogan got a good review. Fergal Bowers there, he's the RTE health correspondent. A new notebook for the period ahead. Michael Brennan. UK companies strike pension deals to ease pressure from pandemic. UK companies strike pension deals. Leinster GA, Paul Johnston, shit life in an age of pandemic. Or still life. It could have been shit life now, it'd be interchangeable, I think. Nigel Farage, COVID crisis in Dover this morning. One migrant boat with 12 on board and they all tested positive for the virus. Get a grip. Priti Patel. Just looking at some of your comments there. Susan, not brave enough for Twitter. Susan, see, you are absolutely right. You're as well off away from it, to be honest with you. Kay Cahill, Terry, as Aer Lingus are a private company, should they be saved by the government? That's an interesting question. And I will have to declare an interest here. I'm a shareholder in Ryanair. And funnily enough, Ryanair shares have increased over the last while by about 25%, even though they're not flying they've bought new airplanes and so on and so forth. The share price has gone up, and I would imagine there'll be a good old improvement when they come back into flying, etc., etc. Susan C., you're not brave enough for Twitter, and I don't blame you, quite frankly. I think most people would be stone mad to be involved in Twitter, because it is a shitstorm at the best of times. Sam David says, I believe a conversation should be had on how the social media companies can regulate false information, which will protect people from acting against their own interests. Yes, Sam, I think something has to be done with the social media companies. The likes of Facebook and the likes of Twitter have enormous power. Obviously, there's some pressure coming on them from the United States, their Congress and so on, the likes of Facebook with Zuckerberg in and so on, and something will have to be done, because the amount of crap that's put out there and people believe is just unbelievable. James Kelly, Twitter is quite toxic. It absolutely is. You can sing that, James Kelly. Dragonborn 2K, I think 33% for capital gains tax is crazy. I'm a 20-year-old student that has currently earned 6,000 profit from cryptocurrencies unrealised. Good for you, Dragonborn 2K. What's your thoughts on the residential tenancies boards? I believe they're pro-tenant. I am a landlord myself, and I do recognise that there is a significant protection for tenants, and I was advising somebody there last week about a difficult tenant, and quite frankly the advice I had to give her wasn't great, and the reason is because even if she serves the proper notices and so on and so forth on the tenant and throws out or terminates the arrangement, or has come to an end and they want the house back, they can't get the tenant out if the tenant just downs tools and stays, because they must then go to the RTB, the Residential Tenancies Board, and they must get a determination that the tenant is to quit, and they must then, after that, in order to enforce that, if the tenant still doesn't quit, go and get a district court order to get the tenant out. So it's a long and expensive process. Thank you for your videos and experience. I'm learning from your experience. Good stuff, Adnan Safdar. Thanks for coming along. Peter OJV. Terry doesn't do Bitcoin because he doesn't know it. He invests in shares and companies. He talks about it a lot. George Breben is going on there about, I don't know what he's going on about, quite frankly. Yep. Where do you buy shares from? How would you someone buy Ryanair shares? I have a Davy Select account, and I have the Gyro account, and there's no difficulty whatsoever buying Ryanair shares. Do you think an employee should have the right to say no to the vaccine until it's properly tested and work from home if possible? There's 3 questions there, Niall. I don't intend unpacking all those questions and dealing with them now. Michael O'Donnell, does winning a WRC case have any bearing on a personal injuries board claim? Michael, I thought you asked me this question the other day on the other one. In fact, you've been asking questions about this particular thing for quite a while on the various... Now, a gentleman and a wonderful voice, Mike Burns. Here's these ladies who were wearing famous hoodies. RTE sold their souls, and they are wearing hoodies that are clearly problematic from a spelling point of view. There is Their, not There. And that is embarrassing, but clearly these people are probably beyond embarrassment. Yeah, there's Cathal McQuilla there now, just tweeting that it's not just spelling. These protesters told Mark Tighe RTE was involved in killing babies. I mean, for anybody to believe that RTE is involved in killing babies is just not worth responding to. Kildare GA. Unanswered questions for mother and baby home survivors. So May Regan, she's an RTE reporter or journalist. The task was to ensure this great stain on her history was cleansed. The remaining questions mean that smudges still remain. Susan C is wondering if there was a joke that she wasn't getting their souls. Maybe there is, Susan, but I'd say the joke is on the guy who actually sold them those t-shirts or those hoodies, because I'd say he was happy enough to get the few bob, and if he had a different view, he was probably happy enough to see them going off with the misspellings, and obviously he was simply acting on instructions. Is the employer legally obliged to deliver a laptop to your house if you're made to work from home due to COVID during level 5 lockdown? Thank you. Legally obliged to deliver a laptop? Jesus, I don't think so. I doubt it very much. Orla O'Donnell is tweeting there about 13 people charged over Dublin City protests, and I'm not I can't understand why only 13 people, quite frankly, were charged, but I would imagine with the amount of footage going around and with the amount of Twitter footage and video footage and so forth, that there will be further arrests, I would imagine, and I would say the pressure will arise on the Gardaí to be more vigorous and more comprehensive. SIP2 are running a poll there about pensions. 66% of supporters or voters support Stop 67. A year ago today, here's a good tweet now. George Conway, this is your man Kellyanne Conway's husband, and as I say, Kellyanne Conway worked for Donald Trump in the White House. But a year ago today, Donald J. Trump, the icon of the right, the coronavirus is very much under control in the United States. We are in contact with everyone and all relevant countries. CDC and World Health have been working hard and very smart. Stock market starting to look very good to me. What a muppet. In all fairness, what a muppet. And then the tweet. Here's Trump at his rally tonight in South Carolina, dismissing worries about the coronavirus as the new hoax. Jesus, I don't know where that video comes from, whether it's an old one or not. New look to week in politics. Higher food prices looming for Irish shoppers. Higher food prices are looming for Irish shoppers. I wonder why that is. I wonder, is that because of the Brexit situation? I know that there are certain products in supermarkets now that have gone very scarce, and I think it's because of the Brexit situation, unfortunately. There's a particular type of flour there now that I need. for my baking, and I am getting it very hard to get it. It's in none of the shops. It's rye flour. Miss Elderberry says that Donald Trump is still president, and that's the end of You're right to thank the Gardaí. They're trying to do their job, absolutely. Adnan Safdar, when you're buying a house and you've already paid 10% of the house, can you ask the seller to clean all house and garden and all mess inside, outside? Adnan, I have a questions and answers situation there on Wednesday at 4 o'clock. Come back to me then and we'll have a look at it. Wednesday, 4 o'clock, question and answer session, all about property. Councillor Peter Kavanagh, now that the Garda Commission has helpfully clarified there was no extreme left involvement, if you're still banging on about how both sides are as bad as each other, you're letting neo-Nazis off the hook. Just put the false equivocation bullshit away for a while. That's fair enough. Jesus Christ, cat videos. Like, what is the story with cat videos? What is the point? Obviously people like them, and people think they're funny. Peter O.J. Terry, can you talk about how to legally divide one house into two? I can talk about that on Wednesday, Peter, when I am doing the questions and answers on property. That's on Wednesday at 4 o'clock. There's Philip Boucher Hayes, Simon Harris, tweeting about such a nice day. Can Venice reinvent itself? And can Venice's property market reinvent itself? That's interesting. There's Michael O'Regan now talking about a truly great man, Monsignor Hugh O'Flaherty. It's interesting that people know individuals in the church down through the years who have been great men or great women, but generally men, I suppose, given the predominance of men in the Catholic Church and so forth. And it's interesting that generally the church would come in for a huge amount of criticism, and yet on an individual basis many people know many individuals who are decent human beings. So not a whole lot. There's Paddy Cole. The majority of people, including 68% of Fine Gael supporters, don't want to see any increases in the pension age. Former business idea. Instead of loans, students sell extra, Now, Naomi O'Leary, this is such a good news. So, COVID-19, US authorises Johnson & Johnson single-dose vaccine. That is good news. And I think the European body that authorises these vaccines have authorised the single-dose one as well. Maxim Radu, you purchased my property investment course, loads of helpful information, thanks so much, and just wondering what's your standard charge for doing the due diligence on a property. Maxim, thank you for buying the course, glad you find it useful. Standard charge for doing the due diligence on a property, if you're going to auction, if you're talking about the due diligence on auction property and contracts and title documents and so on and so forth, you're probably looking at $250 plus VAT or thereabouts, and that would be credited then against the cost of the professional legal fee for the property conveyance if you're successful. If you're not, though, obviously it's going to cost you that few bob. Clearly it's in your interest, if you're going for an auction property, to have it searched out beforehand, because you're running a big risk if you buy a property at auction with no prior review and no due diligence. I have a video coming out very shortly about an auction which went badly wrong for a guy who must have bought the property without having it checked out beforehand, because when he signed the contract and was then asked to complete the sale, he discovered that he wasn't getting vacant possession. He discovered, in fact, that there was a tenant, a sitting tenant, and the likelihood is that that would have been made quite clear to him in advance if he had looked at the title documents and looked at the contracts, because at that stage, you know, they would have to disclose as a sitting tenant. And I've seen it myself. I have done plenty of research on that, and I've come across plenty of those houses. So that video is coming out soon. Have a look at it, but you do need to get your research done on an auction property beforehand, because if you don't, you really are leaving yourself wide open. Sam David, I'm set 25 saving up to get on the property ladder. I'm currently single. Would you recommend waiting till I meet someone, or would you get on the ladder as soon as you can? Well, the two questions, Sam, are different. Obviously, insofar as you don't need someone to buy a property with, do you know what I mean? So obviously you can fire away if you can afford it beforehand, and I'd keep the two questions, two issues separate, two different issues, quite frankly. I mean, obviously one is to do with a relationship and perhaps having a life partner for 30, 40, 50 years, and the other is to do with buying a house. So there's no real equivalence between the two. So I wouldn't be waiting around if I was you. If you want to buy a house or a property and get on the property ladder, by all means, fire away. I am going to Claudia A. Prasek. What are your thoughts on a clause that is becoming quite common in new developments, a clause in the deeds that waives owners' right to object to further development in the estate? Claudia, I wasn't aware of that clause in the deeds, and that waives owners' rights to object to further development in the estate, and I would be very surprised if such a clause was enforceable. Because obviously people have a constitutional right to object to developments and so on and so forth. So I'm not so sure that that would be enforceable. I haven't come across it yet, and I've dealt with quite a few new ones. Susan C. is advising Sam to save. I bought Aska, single person at 40, but if I'd been waiting for Mr. Right and not saved, then I couldn't have bought. Absolutely. You're wasting your time waiting for Mr. Right, Susan, isn't that right? You'd be better off. Well, look, I'm not going to comment on it, but I think you do need to be aware that you're better off buying the house if you want to buy a house, and if you want to get on the property ladder, fire away. Now, I don't think that there's a whole pile going on here on Twitter. I thought there'd be a lot of stuff on Twitter that might be of benefit and of use, but there's a lot of nonsense on it today anyway, apart from, so I'm just going to go through here some of these comments that I might have missed already, and I'll try and deal with some of them. George Breben, the right to remain silent in an interaction with Garda. Don't do criminal law, George. You have the right to remain silent, but you know, like all rights, it's qualified to an extent, insofar as if you do exercise that right, it may well lead to an adverse inference against you at a later prosecution. So E. Walsh, thumbs up. Thank you, E. Walsh. BLM is a scam. It was made up by billionaires. That is a view that is E. Walsh's. Deet, why has Ireland allowed the floodgates to open, allowing everyone in with no skills or benefits to the country be housed and pay weekly with no attributes? That is such a stupid comment, quite frankly, that it's not worth commenting on. Arthur McGurk, I have a judgment mortgage on my premises I lease. The tenants ignore my letters from the solicitor. What can I do? You have a judgment mortgage on your premises. lease. I'm not sure who you have the judgment mortgage against, Arthur, or is someone got a judgment mortgage against you? Wasn't Harrows originally a British intelligence asset? Eve DK. Hello Terry, just want to say I loved your baking video. Thanks a lot. Good stuff. Oh, let me see now. Who else have we here? Thanks for coming along anyway. Susan has a cat now, and she doesn't have a monkey, she has a cat. That's good. That's good. China's COVID vaccination program beset by delay and reluctance. Junta warns the embassy speaking of. E20. How can you address bullying or bullying culture in the workplace when reporting numerous issues to the union have proven useless over time? How can you address bullying or bullying culture in the workplace? You must bring the allegations of bullying to the employer, E20, and you must then leave yourself open to the possibility that what you allege or claim is bullying isn't actually bullying. People throw this bullying phrase, word around to beat the band, and a lot of times it's not bullying at all, quite frankly. Now, I'm not saying you're not being bullied, but I mean, reporting it to the union doesn't employ you, so you're better off A, reporting it to the employer, and B, going then to the WRC if the employer fails to deal with it. And obviously there's other things to look at. There's other avenues open to you, but I mean, they're not great, quite frankly, because bullying, really, in order to pursue bullying as a personal injury action, that's really what you need to do, and you need to show that you've suffered a personal injury as a consequence of the bullying, etc. And that is something that is difficult to do, difficult to win, difficult to prove. It's not impossible. I've done it. I've represented a client, but it's not easy. Maxim Radu. Sorry Terry, yeah, it's a bid X1 auction I'm looking to buy from, and my biggest fear is I'll have my savings stuck in it for a long period of time due to some problems with the paperwork. Well, you should get it reviewed, Maxim Radu, before you buy. I mean, after that then obviously you're going to go in with your eyes wide open, and but you need, if it's a bid X1 auction, and there's nothing wrong with bid X1 auctions, what I actually like about them is that you know where you stand at the outset, because all the legal documents are on the website, up front. All the crap is there in front of you, but you need to go through it, and you need to find it, and you need to do your due diligence. I'm looking forward to that video to see what the worst case can be buying from auction. Well, the worst case buying from auction is that you buy a pile of shite, quite frankly, and you've been put on notice in advance of that, and you would have been, because you have the opportunity to look at, or have looked at, the documents, the legal documents, and so on in advance of it. So you buy it as it is, you are successful, you pay the deposit 10%, and you are going to be pursued perhaps to complete the sale if you show any reluctance. So you need to be very, very careful. I'm looking forward to that video to see what the worst case can be from buying from auction. The worst case is you're going to the worst case is that you're going to be actually sued for specific performance, in other words, to complete the sale. The next worst case is probably you lose your money, your 10% deposit, and you do not have a leg to stand on. The only answer to bullying is philosophy. Fortify your inner citadel. That is Susan's answer to bullying, and it can be very difficult. I do recognise that people have great difficulty in work with bullying and so on, and bullying does go on, there's no doubt about it. And some people simply don't have the skills to deal with bullying, and some people are bullies whether they even realise it or not. But it's difficult to deal with, because strictly speaking, if you look at the laws in Ireland, you'll discover that there's actually no specific law that outlaws bullying. It's not on the statute books that bullying is an offence. what's an offence or what gives rise to a claim or a cause of action is a personal injury that you've suffered as a consequence of the bullying, or you might have a claim for constructive dismissal. In other words, you might leave the job and bring a claim for constructive dismissal on the basis that A, you were bullied, B, you told the employer about it, and C, the employer did nothing about it. And on that basis, then you have no choice but to leave the job, and the conduct of the employer was so unreasonable you had to leave, and the employer has essentially repudiated the contract by reason of his inaction or the action he's taken. Then you might bring a claim for constructive dismissal. But to be honest with you, if you're being bullied, it's not worth the hassle. You're as well off to consider trying to get another job. I know that's not easy either, but look, I'm not here to give you easy answers. I'm here to give you the reality and the truth as far as I see it, and give you the best advice I can, or best information I can. Obviously what I'm giving here is not necessarily advice as such. Now, there's a big ass chicken. Chicken is done according to Mick Finnegan, and that looks like a good chicken there. I hope you can see it. Maxim, yeah, when will the auction video be up? It'll be up soon enough, Maxim, but it doesn't make any difference. I mean, the bottom line is, all I'm doing is identifying, quite frankly, the problem that your man had with that, and the mistake that he made, even though I have videos before. I've at least 2 videos on my YouTube channel telling people not to buy a property at auction unless they have done their due diligence. And people, unfortunately, don't watch my videos, or enough people don't, and obviously people fall into make mistakes, but don't buy at auction without doing your due diligence and understanding what it is you're buying. That is a big ass chicken there, there's no doubt about that. That looks good. Chicken is done according to Mick Finnegan, and it certainly looks like it's done alright. And we are having beef this evening, thanks be to God. So looking forward to that now. Brighter days ahead, according to Evelyn Moynihan. She's right, hopefully spring is coming, and round here today, beautiful day, and hopefully wherever you are, it's a beautiful day as well. I think it is, and I think it has been a good day. And thanks for coming along to this experimental sort of a live chat stream situation. And if you have an interest in property, I'm doing live questions and answers in relation to property on Wednesday of this week at 4 o'clock. I'll be doing that on YouTube, and if you have any questions about property, come along and fire away. So thanks to all of you for showing up and commenting and so on, and it's an interesting experiment. I'm thinking about doing a weekly show. Actually, I'm thinking about doing a weekly show. What's your views on that? I'd appreciate it if you left your views there in the comments or in the live chat. And what format would you like to see if there was a show? I'm not sure whether I can be asking or answering questions, legal questions every week, and so I was looking for something else in terms of doing a weekly show, using perhaps Twitter as a talking point or as a generator of topics and issues of interest and so on, but I'm not sure whether that's the case or not. And today is my first time doing the Twitter feed thing, and it's only when you go through it. Certainly today seems to be a quiet day because there's not a whole pile of stuff of interest apart from the few photographs there about the protest yesterday and so on. And obviously I don't want to spend the whole hour in any show talking about the protests. So I would must watch your live questions answers Wednesday. I like gentlemen. Thanks, Susan. Yeah. Look, will you give me feedback, please, if you don't mind? I do propose doing a weekly show, but I do want to do it right. I don't want to be repeating myself. I don't want to be repeating or answering the same questions week after week. I do like to, as I say, I thought the Twitter thing might be something useful. Let me know what you think. Let me know in the comments below or in the live chat or whatever. I'll go through it later on, and obviously I'll publish it. and I'm coming to the end there now. I'm just going to go for an hour today. That would be the proposal, that I'd go for perhaps an hour every week with a live show. But obviously, I don't want to be rambling and wasting your time and wasting my own time and boring people either. And I genuinely thought that the Twitter thing would throw up more issues of interest and so on. Of course, I didn't look at the freaking the legal stuff. I have a legal list, and that would have been probably useful enough to have a look at. But I should have nothing about the rugby, Susan C. No, I have a thing about Ireland beating the crap out of Italy every couple of years or every year. I mean, what is the point? I'd be a very big fan myself of sports, would have been all my life, but I can't see any huge benefit or interest in a game like that where it's going to be like 40-10 or whatever every bloody time. But anyway, that's just my view. I think sport could be or should be competitive and so on. Anyway, I would appreciate if you appreciate firstly coming along and supporting the channel. Secondly, I appreciate you coming along today for the live chat and for this particular stream. And thirdly, I'd like if you would leave comments down below or in the live chat about what sort of a weekly show you might like, what topics I should cover. I mean, would the going through the Twitter feed work, I wonder, or would it be something else might work better? So I'm interested to hear that from you. And I've lost this now, I think. Yeah, I've lost my Twitter feed. Anyway, we'll just close up the Twitter feed there, I think. Yeah, maybe short tutorials on legal issues. Well, I do short tutorials all the time on legal issues because most of my videos are fairly sort of teaching, or intend to be teaching and intend to be useful enough. So the short tutorials, I'm not so sure. It's something more of a community building thing that I'd be interested in. But anyway, thanks for showing up today. Thanks for coming along. As I say, I would appreciate your feedback, and I appreciate you coming along today. I'd appreciate your feedback about the Twitter situation and so on, and we'll have a look at that again. Okay, thanks a lot, and have a great day, have a good evening, and have a good week, whatever you're at.